Hello, Movie Mavens. Welcome back to another video on the B Movies channel. My name is Bailey, and I put the B in movies. First and foremost, let's talk about the elephant in the room. I am so sorry for the unexpected 2-week hiatus, Movie Mavens. The past 2 weeks have been, well, the past 2 weeks. I've been so busy, y'all, and I'm so grateful to be so busy. But again, it's been busy. It's, we all know what happened here. So I'm really happy to be back with all of you. But I do want to start today's video talking about, the state of affairs, if you will. And so I usually tell you when to skip this part. I'm not, because I think that, what I have to say needs to be said. And so, some people are probably going to get mad because the Bailey Babbles is going to take just a second, but skip and find the new timestamp if you so choose. I, like a lot of you, I'm scared, I'm angry, I'm sad. I've talked a lot about the results of this election in the past couple weeks, so I'm going to keep it pretty short. I'm also going to leave some LGBTQIA plus resources in the description box, for BIPOC queer people, for South Asian queer people, for the trans community, just a lot of lifelines, a lot of resources, because unfortunately due to the results of the election, there's been a massive uptick in call to suicide hotlines. And so I want to make sure that those resources are available, so I will be leaving them in the description box for the next several videos / indefinitely. So, basically, if you're not terrified, you're either privileged or you're not paying attention. Point blank, period. I don't know what else to say to you. If you don't think the culture and the landscape of this country is already changing, look around. Look around. Read the news. I took a rideshare the other day. I've never been scared in a rideshare, and I recognize that privilege as a white woman and as a straight passing woman fully heard, recognize that for sure. And so I'm having to take precautions now that I never thought I would have to. Because my driver used a lot of rhetoric that certain people, who are going to be in power soon, it's not even worth saying his name, use. And said things to me as a woman that was trapped in his car. So, if you're not terrified, I don't know what to say to you. You are either privileged or you are not paying attention. And I just want to make that clear. So, in short, hope your cheaper omelet was worth it, because the blood that it's going to take to make that omelet cheaper, which, spoiler, it's not going to be cheaper. Your eggs are not going to be $2.50. Don't know how to tell y'all that. Don't know how to explain how tariffs work. If you try to slide into my DMs and say, I didn't vote for him, but why was this better under him? I'm done explaining how the economy works. I'm done explaining that gas prices were lower in 2020 because it was COVID, so no one was going anywhere. I'm sick of explaining how tariffs work. Tariffs make everything more expensive. I'm sick of it. So I hope your $2.50 omelet was worth it. And I hope that the blood that it took to make it gives it that extra flavor. Because your groceries are not going to be cheaper. And I'm just going to get riled up, so I'm going to have to cut myself. All I will say is, at least as of a few days ago, one of the top results on Google was, can I change my vote, or some variation of that. So let that sink in momentarily. Moving on. Because I'm going to get, y'all know I get really riled up about things in the state of affairs. And especially, like, religious stuff. Like, I'm going to see Heretic tonight, and so we'll talk about it next week. I'm sure that I'm going to get real fired up in it. But, yeah. just, I hope that you're taking care of yourselves, take care of each other, take care of your community. And so for the next little bit, let's just sit back. Let's talk about pop culture. Let's give ourselves a little break. But like, I want to be abundantly clear in that here at B Movies, we will always stand up for what's right, and we will always speak up for what's right. And I just want to make that clear. So for the next little bit, let's just take a little break. Let's talk about pop culture. But I just want to let you know that like this will not be the last time that we will talk about issues like this. Because we have always talked about LGBTQIA plus issues here. We've always talked about women's rights. We've always talked about issues that BIPOC people face. We've talked about that here. And we will continue to talk about that here. We will continue to talk about the Jenny slide and ask for a free Palestine. So I just want to be clear. Make sure we're on the same page. Because if for some reason you have missed any pieces that we've talked about that, especially we published a piece that Friday of election week, and I don't really think I minced words. Now would be the time to go ahead and unsubscribe. So, again, I'm getting all riled up. So, for the third time, let's sit back, let's talk about pop culture, take care of yourselves, take care of your communities, and I love you all. So, let's go ahead, and if you're new to the channel, what a video to start on, baby. If you're new here, the B Movies channel is a continuation of the B Movies blog, which I run with my friend Elliot, who is my partner in crime, my editor, my collaborator, one of my ride or dies. And we post pieces every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time over on bmovies.blog, which is linked in our description box below. And we also post them, we post daily on our Instagram, which is at B Movies channel, same as our YouTube. So, this week over on the B Movies blog, we started with a spotlight on Kirby. Kirby Howell Baptiste now goes by Kirby, so we are honoring that. She's gone down to, in the way of Cher, she is just going by Kirby. Love her, get excited anytime her name pops up. On Tuesday, we talked about time travel horror, so think like Happy Death Day, Totally Killer, anything in that vein, because it's just fun. On Wednesday, and this will also be our deep dive, we introduced a new series to the B Movies universe called Side Dish Cinema, wherein I'm going to take some of your favorite drinks, foods, snacks, etc., and give you some movie recommendations to pair with them. On Thursday, we talked about Hot Frosty, which I did not expect to enjoy as much as I did, and that is actually a very fun review. If you've not read it, would recommend that one, because it's very fun. And then on Friday, we talked about waffles and mochi, because, you know, like Nanalan, I love waffles and mochi. It's something just very wholesome and sweet, which I think we definitely need right now. So to recap, this week over on the B Movies blog, spotlight on Kirby, time travel horror, the introduction of Side Dish Cinema, a Hot Frosty review, and a piece on waffles and mochi. So all of those pieces will be linked below, and again, you can find them on bmovies.blog, which is also always linked below. Now let's talk about Bite Size Sunday. This is obviously coming out on Sunday. So the perk of subscribing to YouTube is you either get a hint of what the Bite Size Sunday is going to be, or we talk about it here for a little bit in a way that you just have to check the Instagram to see what it is. So it's just a perk of subscribing to YouTube is you get a little bit of an exclusive, or to use a comedy by may term, a little exclusive on what the Bite Size Sunday is going to be. So this week's Bite Size Sunday. Y'all know I set myself up on this one. I played myself. Y'all know Cruel Intentions is one of my favorite movies of all time. I love that movie. I have a t-shirt, the infamous Cruel Intentions Target shirt that kept selling out everywhere. Finally got one a while back. I have a tattoo planned with my artist that's a Cruel Intentions tattoo. I tried to watch the series. I watched the first episode, and I have some very strong opinions, including why would you start out with a cover of Rebel Girl? A cover? A cover if you couldn't get the rights from Bikini Kill or Kathleen Hanna? Just don't do it. Don't do it. Y'all know I love teen dramas, but this just call it something else. And I mean, it's kind of like, you know, how Amazon tried to do that I Know What You Did Last Summer show. I feel like Amazon needs to stay away from rebooting shows because they have a lot of strengths. Rebooting shows based off of existing IP is not one of them. So, even though I will say Roadhouse was fun, but like, anyway, just a lot of feelings. So be sure to check out Bite Size Sunday. That lives over on our Instagram only, which is at bmovies channel, same as our YouTube. We post those every Sunday morning, usually around like 8 or 9 CT. Sometimes it's a little later, but around then. So yeah, get ready, because I've only watched one episode and I'm basing my entire opinion on that one episode. So let's go ahead and jump into today's deep dive, which again, if you're new to the channel, this section of the video is just to talk about one of the pieces from the B Movies channel for the week, or to talk about something related to one of the pieces for the week. And so this week, I wanted to talk about Side Dish Cinema, which is our new series. So a while back, y'all loved this piece that I did, where I recommended 3 movies based on your astrological sign. And so I've been kind of noodling, like, how to expand upon that, because y'all really loved it. I loved doing it. And so that brings us to like the inaugural entry of Side Dish Cinema. So with the weather cooling down, kind of, I mean, I've always known global warming was a thing and knew the effects, but like this year has really shown me with like, how warm it has been, in my area. It's usually not that warm here and it's making me real nervous. Don't know about y'all. But the weather's like cooling down, ? So that means that like you're more than likely sipping on your favorite hot beverage, or if you're me, sorry everyone. So if you're like me, I drink cold beverages year round. I eat ice cream year round. That's just how I roll. And so, you know, if you're a rebel like me, I threw in a section for you, don't worry. But you know, you get your drink in your hand, you settle down to watch a movie, but what should you watch? Which is the age-old question. So that's where Side Dish Cinema comes in. And so basically I've thought through like 9 different drink options. Hopefully I got everything. I know I probably didn't, but hopefully I got something at least adjacent. So I've paired 9 different drinks with 3 movies each. So I mean, you have 27 movie options to choose from. And since the drinks with the time of year and everything, they are skewing more holiday, but I've already thought about, you know, I definitely want to do another one that's more like holiday agnostic for sure. And don't worry, don't worry. I have like so many more ideas for Side Dish Cinema. So like you should have it for candy, snacks, ice cream, even different types of cuisine. So get excited, because I'm really excited for this new series. So let's go ahead and go through the drinks and the pairings. I can talk a little bit about what I was thinking for each. So the first drink that we have up is hot chocolate. And I chose Elf Serendipity, the Santa Claus, because, you know, the Santa Claus, there's like the big fancy hot cocoa. Elf just screams hot chocolate to me, and Serendipity, of course, Serendipity in New York is famous for their frozen hot chocolate and their hot chocolates in general. And just also a friendly reminder that Tim Allen sucks. Don't watch the Santa Claus series. It's total BS. Don't watch it. But those are the movies that I chose for hot chocolate. For hot tea, Love Actually, The Family Stone, Little Women, the 1994 or the 2019 version. Just because those to me were a little more regal. Love Actually's British, which was my thought there. And like for the Family Stone, for some reason, tea just felt cozy, and it felt right. For fall flavored beverages, I did Stepmom, Practical Magic, Dead Poet Society. It has a lot to do with like the foliage, with the time of year the movies are set, etc. Also, like, this is the most depressing category, and I'm sorry. For Peppermint Mocha, I did kind of like whimsical / traditional Christmas movies. So like A Muppet's Christmas Carol, or The Muppets Christmas Carol, sorry, let me call it by its Christian name. A Year Without a Santa Claus, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, just because Peppermint Mochas to me are so like Christmas, and so just some traditional holiday movies for you there. For chai tea, I have The Holiday, You've Got Mail, Happiest Season. For some reason, You've Got Mail just immediately clicked with chai tea for me. And again, like, kind of similar vibe to, like, hot tea, where it's cozy and, like, something about, like, that cinnamon flavor just made me think of these movies. For hot toddies, honestly, hot toddies to me give off dad energy, which is not bad. And, like, obviously you don't have to be a dad. That's not what I'm saying. But I thought, like, Scrooged, A Christmas Story, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, like, kind of like dad-coded movies, which, like, I enjoy A Christmas Story, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Scrooged is not my favorite. I'll just be honest. I know that's controversial. But to me, it's just, they're all very dad-coded movies. For apple cider, I did Spirited, Jack Frost, A Holiday to Remember. Again, pretty cozy, eclectic movies. Even though I know Spirited is new, it's still, for me, kind of like tugs on the heartstrings a little bit, like Jack Frost and A Holiday to Remember. This is also the second most depressing category, I would say. For black coffee, for me, that's your more traditional. You probably like some of the older movies, which, again, I also drink black coffee. Like, this is not stereotyping. It's what the drinks made me think of. So I did, like, a more traditional route with black coffee. So, like, It's a Wonderful Life, Meet Me in St. Louis, the original 1947 Miracle on 34th Street, movies like that. And then if you're me, where you do, like, ice or blended beverages, thought, like, quirky, again, kind of whimsical, maybe a little spooky. And so Gremlins, Edward Scissorhands, Nightmare Before Christmas. So that is Side Dish Cinema. Really excited to move forward with this series. Can't wait to share more with y'all. So let's go ahead and dive into today's special features, because today's special features is packed. Because, again, since we were gone for 2 weeks, we're playing a little bit of catch up. It's packed. So if you're new, special features, this is reserved for updates on, like, our favorite analog horror series, horror ARGs, and sometimes reviews that I don't write, it's stuff I just want to talk about, but necessarily not write a piece about. So again, another exclusive to subscribing to the YouTube channel. So subscribe if you're not subscribed. So let's go ahead. We have a new episode of Vermis Malum / an announcement. So in this episode called, Cyclic Inheritance. Now I'm like, Cyclic Inheritance. Now I'm questioning everything. So we start with what appears to be footage of a different video game, which is Dark Souls. And Lawrence is leaving a voicemail for someone, and we can assume it's the same person that he's been vlogging to. Lawrence says he's in a really bad headspace. It seems like he may be only sleeping for like 30 minutes at a time max. He says that he basically feels like he's dreaming even when he's awake, and it reminds me a lot of, like, the description of insomnia from the beginning of Fight Club, the movie, like, in a good way, obviously, like when the narrator's talking about how you feel like you're never really asleep and you never feel like you're really awake. And then we hear that too familiar whistle, that I just don't want to, I can whistle really loud, and so I hope that didn't hurt y'all's ears too bad. And we're back to the next level, aka Ring 4. So we climb into the same creepy Let the Sun Shine In elevator, and we get out in what appears to be a land with, like, lots of lava and magma, and, like, a giant floating chessboard. And then the phone rings, and on the other end, someone named Sir Ira begins talking. He talks about, like, basically us performing some sort of C-section on a monster to get him out, so, you know, that's something. I would also like to note he's coughing like Lawrence has been in previous videos. Just want to point that out now. And then Sir Ira also begins talking about, like, how hatred of your father devours you, which hit a little bit too close to home for me. And then asks us to play, like, the last game with him. So Lawrence walks around a little bit to explore, and he comes across a sign that says fall. And after closer inspection, it looks like in the magma there's another piece of floating chessboard, so he decides to fall. Then some sort of, like, cipher key appears on the screen, and once we fall, we have a neon sign that tells Lawrence he needs to numb himself because the fall hurts. Lawrence begins exploring this new landscape, and then a slide from what looks like PowerPoint comes up, that starts talking about a virus, including the creeper, who we've seen in previous videos. There's a line in this portion of the video that I would like to call attention to that says, "What you consume changes you a little every day," which I believe alludes to, obviously, Lawrence in the game. We then get more context for, like, the whistle. We learn that there's not really a lot known about who created this game, that it's been studied excessively, but no one knows how it works, who made it, etc. And then there's another line here that I would like to call attention to that says, "Meanwhile, the poison is already devouring them inside slowly, and they can't feel it," which, in my humble opinion, alludes to Lawrence's ongoing illness, his insomnia, etc. We then cut back to Ring 4, and we get a picture of a text thread from a broken phone where someone named Rachel is reaching out to Arthur, who we know that this was his laptop, and is telling him, like, she doesn't feel safe, she needs his help, so on and so forth. We then get a flash of the Vermis Malum symbol on the screen, and then the trademark whistle. And then we cut to what's kind of like a Club Penguin-esque game, where, like, the main character in it's, like, asking you to take a photo shoot. It's like the dog in Neopets is what it reminded me of. I can't think of what his name is, but y'all know what I'm talking about. And if you pause at the right time, there's a quick image of Arthur's couch it's not Arthur's couch, but it's that family couch that Arthur talked about in his research, the olive green one. That flashes really quick. Again, it's very Fight Club-esque. It's like the subliminal messaging in Fight Club. So you have to go frame by frame, which y'all know. My mortal enemy is going frame by frame, but I did it, and that's what it is. This character also tells us that, like, we need more in-game currency, and so, like, we should play some games. For those playing along with my Dante's Inferno theory, the fourth ring is greed, just to call that out. And then we cut back to that same lava-filled hellscape that we were in earlier, but this time we encounter a monster that looks like the Demogorgon, but if the Demogorgon was like a chess piece, if that makes sense, so instead of like the gills, like an axolotl gill situation, it's like a chess piece situation. I don't know what the names of chess pieces are, but the one with the little crown thing. And the creature says, "Don't look away, father," as it seems to, like, unalive itself. I don't know if we unalive it or not. I was a little unclear on that part. And then we hear the Vermis Malum whistle again. So then we cut to Lawrence's webcam, where it seems as though Lawrence and someone named Haley are talking about a movie that they're watching. So it's clear that not only can this thing infect anything at any time, because we saw it in Dark Souls earlier, but to me, this thing has also been, like, chasing Lawrence for a long time, because we can infer Haley is the person Lawrence has been sending vlogs to. And so we hear them talk off screen. It's very clear, at least to me, that they're together. And they're, like, talking about the plot of the movie, and we only hear them off screen because the webcam is just at Lawrence's chair, which we've seen this footage before intermittently dispersed, right? Like, we've seen this wooden chair. And so Haley is, like, teasing Lawrence about being scared of the movie. They're watching Session 9. I was impatient and immediately Googled it because I was like, I know this movie. It says it in the subtitle. So if you don't be impatient like me, just give it a minute. Like, we are not left in the dark on what movie this is. And there's a line in Session 9, which is, "I live in the weak and the wounded, Doc." And Haley comments, like, this is the signature of the film. And to me, this is the signature of Vermis Malum, right? You know, like, the game is preying on Lawrence because he clearly is going through a lot, right? Like, we put that together, that something happened with he and Haley, and it seems like there was a catastrophic event that caused him and Haley to need some separation, right? So Haley and Lawrence just keep talking, and the video ends with that same weird cipher we saw earlier, spinning out of control and becoming something bubbly and visceral and gross in the middle. And so that's where we leave today's video. So something that I saw in the comments, because I wrote this, and I always check the comment section, just I'm like, in case I missed something. Something that one of the commenters noticed, which kudos to them, is in the Club Penguin-esque game, the character we're playing as is Katie, which is short for Catherine, who we've seen correspondences from before. and a chat with Leo opens, we've seen Catherine and Leo notes from them in the past. So I'm a little bit worried about what happened to Catherine here. And then additionally, I'd like to point out that Volrusk, who is the creator of Vermis Malum, has said that we're in the final videos of Disc 1 of the story, which we can assume means the first act. And they've renamed the channel Volrusk to better portray what their channel is going to be, because they want to tell more of the story, right? Of Vermis Malum, like there's more to the story. But they also want to they also said in their community tab that they want to do some more horror projects as well. And like Volrusk, like I can't wait to see what you cook up, because the quality of this series just keeps getting higher and higher. And we already started out really strong. I also can't wait to see how Disc 1 ends. Can't wait to see what other horrors you're cooking up for us. And just good job. Just really, really good job. Really good work. This is a really good series. As always, I'll link this video and the Volrusk channel below. But yeah, my friend, you're doing a really good job, and I can't wait to see what else you cook up. So next up, this is just a fun little thing, but Dumb Ways to Unalive. I don't know if I can say it. It's their channel name, but I don't know if I can say it. Recently did a collaboration with Happy Tree Friends called Happy Train Friends. And obviously the characters from both worlds befall terrible fates. If you aren't familiar with Happy Tree Friends, it's a series with all these really cute animals who are constantly unalived in extremely gruesome and terrible ways. It was really popular, like, when I was in middle school, especially high school. It was a big thing at Hot Topic. Fall Out Boy even did their music video for the Carpal Tunnel of Love has like both them as Happy Tree Friends and the Happy Tree Friends. So I just thought it would be a fun inclusion. It's nostalgic for me. So I will link that video below. Obviously trigger warning and content warning for like extreme gore and violence and depictions of animated animals being unalived in very extreme, gory, and violent ways. Just a heads up. But I just included it because I thought it was a fun little nostalgic thing. So next up, we have New Midwest Angelica, and this one is called Terminated. So this video begins right where the previous video left off, where Marcus Lucan, as we know, like, he went to Paradise, he got all of that footage. So this video seems to start right where that one ended. So we get some text that says his videos were recorded in Paradise, Missouri. They were recorded, my goodness, around June 2nd. We also learned that, like, these tapes were received from the flippin' Pentagon, so I'm sure that that's great and there's nothing to worry about. We also learned that there's another tape that we're about to watch, and it's a tape that Lucan took of a broadcast from the same trip. And so we begin with a clip that's an ad for an attorney named Tim Riesler in Kansas City. I'm just going to put that name out here in case, like, that comes back later. And then we get a clip from All About Eve, which I personally appreciated because I love All About Eve. It's so good. Then there appears to be, like, some channel flipping as we get the logo for, like, Channel 6 headline news, the day's temperature for the areas, including Paradise, etc. And then we get an emergency notice across the screen. Y'all know those banners where it's like the wah, wah, wah noise, and you get that banner. For a water boil advisory for Clay County, aka where Lucan is, which makes sense, because if you remember in the last video, the water was contaminated. Lucan found that the water was contaminated, even his hotel room. When he turned that faucet, it was that bright red. And if you also go frame by frame, again, my arch nemesis, there's some sort of message about Procter & Gamble sponsoring some sort of editorial content. I couldn't fully make out what it was, to be totally honest with you, but just wanted to call it out, again, in case it comes back later. We then cut to a story from Channel 6 Live that shows that same massive entity that Lucan caught on film towards the end of the last video. The newscaster tells us that the team is attempting to get closer and that basically we'll get updates as they become readily available. Then we get a loud jarring noise and a broadcast terminated title card. We get a creepy robotic voice, like, telling us the broadcast has been terminated with some static and glitching. You know, like the usual analog horror special. And we learned that this entity is called Beta Chunk, which is 100% what I'm going to start calling my Chiweenie for sure. I digress. And that Starkill was basically trying to keep the presence of this entity, like, completely silent, like, keep it under wraps. However, you know, Lucan was still able to get into paradise, so, like, whatever plan here that was established worked. And it also says that Home Delta, since, like, they've been assimilated, it's assumed that they're the ones who hijacked the signal to terminate the broadcast. So, like, Midwest Angelica, I love this arc. This might be my favorite arc so far. I really like this. I really like this arc/act a lot. I'm always excited to see what y'all are going to think up next. This is another series that we've covered for a very long time here on B. I think we've covered it for about a year on B Movies. So can't wait to see where this goes. So next up, we have a new episode of Hell of a Boss, which I cannot say out loud. It's Ghost Effers. I cannot say that title out loud. But you get it. And man, I love this show so much. I know I say that every single time. And I also know that I say this every single time, but this episode got me. So, like, kind of as a premise, Blitz is not doing well after his breakup with Stolas. So Millie gets to the office. Luna's been up all night, like, working on stuff for him. Moxie is, like, trying to get their finances in order because Blitz is just, like, hemorrhaging money. And so Millie kind of takes it upon herself to try to help Blitz out of his funk. And so they take a job at this hotel where people are apparently being unalived. And so after finding out, like, the demons may be calling from inside the house, it's up to Billy, I just combined their names, it's up to Millie to help remind Blitz of his worth and for Blitz to fight his inner demons. As always, like, every single episode of Hell of a Boss is chef's kiss. If you weren't already watching it, watch it. If I didn't convince you the first time that we wrote about it, I will link our piece below, as well as the Vivzy Pop channel and the episode. But definitely watch Hell of a Boss. Definitely watch Has Been Hotel. They're both so good. And if you're not watching, you should be. So next up, let's talk about the Walton Files. The Return of the Pumpkin Rabbit. So, fair warning up top on this one, too. Major CWs and TWs for violence. The children in this are, like, anthropomorphic animals, but, like, it still kind of represents children. And there's a lot of violence, unaliving of children, things in that vein. So, like, definitely viewer discretion is majorly advised on this one. So we start out with, like, the opening credits for the special. And, you know, we get credits for Martin's team and, like, some people who worked on this, which is incredible. Like, just major shout outs to everyone who worked on this, the voice actors, the animators, just everyone who worked on this. Incredible work, as always. And then we get the narrator telling us that, like, it was a normal Halloween night in Nash Lake, and some young kids decided to visit an abandoned house. So as we're, like, kind of cutting through different parts of town, we get a cut of Bond's Burgers in the beginning. So it's clear that, like, this special is related to our story, obviously. And so then we get a vintage title card for, like, the Return of the Pumpkin Rabbit with, like, the slimy looking letters. And so we join our kids as they walk up to this abandoned house that we learn is called the Waterman House. We learned that the house was abandoned because children would always visit the house on Halloween, like they were decked out in lights, pumpkins, decorations, etc., like they went all out. However, it appears the Watermans were harboring a dark secret as the children in town consistently went missing. So what happened was finally one Halloween, one of the victim's sisters saw her sibling enter the house and they never came out. And they never found any of the bodies either, which we'll get there. And so, like, in a very Nightmare on Elm Street inspired move, the townspeople took things into their own hands and burned the Watermans alive. But something to point out is, like, in my opinion, the figures being burned look a lot like Bond and Shaw, which is interesting. We'll come back to it. But one of the kids keeps telling us, who we'll come to learn their name is Jay, that the house has been empty ever since then, but you can allegedly still hear the Watermans inside. And so in typical horror movie fashion, Jay, Paco, and Dino decide to go inside, and one of them, I want to say his name was Benji, one of them protests and stays outside. So once our kids get inside, there's like graffiti of what looks like Billy the Clown. There's other little Walton Files Easter eggs with like pictures of the other characters lining the walls. And there's like this pumpkin on the couch. And of course, Jay lights it. So as soon as Jay lights the pumpkin, it sounds like a TV turns on in the other room. So the kids go into the living room and find someone or something watching TV. And a creepy voice tells them, like, there's no need to hide. It's okay. They're so happy that the kids are there. Which means run like hell. So the kids instantly begin apologizing. And she asks what their names are. She says there's plenty of candy to go around. And once we see the person in the chair, it appears to be some sort of like sheep-like abomination. And is called the Sheep Witch in the titles. And so that's how we will refer to this character from here on out. So the Sheep Witch encourages children to go get the candy from the kitchen to like prepare for her husband to come home. And one of them there's a book on the arm of the chair, and so Dino takes the book. So then we cut to, I believe his name is Benji, who's the kid who stayed outside. And he's like muttering under his breath, again in true horror movie fashion, about like how dumb his friends are, so on and so forth. And he's bouncing a little ball that's shaped like a pumpkin, and it ricochets off a mannequin next to the house and rolls over to a pumpkin patch. On the side of the house, it has like a bunch of creepy scarecrows and decorations, and you can hear creepy children laughing, which is always something you want when you're alone at night in a strange location. And then that's when we see the pumpkin rabbit, and I hate it. I would also like to point out the pumpkin rabbit is wearing the same white shirt / apron and black tie that's very similar to what we've seen Bond wear in the last video, in the last chapter of the Walton Files. Just pointing that out. So the pumpkin rabbit has Benji's ball, offers it back to him. I would have already been halfway to Delaware. Benji tries to leave, but baby, this is the Walton Files, so you know it doesn't end well. He runs into a horrific scarecrow, gets his foot stuck in the pumpkin, and then gets got. And I would like to say, this part gets really graphic. He basically rips his face off. And so, again, big major trigger warnings and content warnings. It is animated. They are anthropomorphic animal children. But still, it's like pretty gruesome. So, we cut back to the inside of the house and we hear horrific screams from the window, which, like, we can assume to be the event that I just talked about. And so, Jay tries to hide in the pantry. And then we cut back to Paco, who, he and Jay got split. So Jay went to the kitchen to get candy, like the Sheep Witch said. But Paco followed a kid's voice who said, hey, I know how to get you out of here. So Paco is following this kid down the hallway. And this kid leads Paco to this horrific clown-themed room, winds up locking him inside, and he's begging to be let out. And so that's when we hear the Sheep Witch start this terrifying rendition of Hush Little Baby. Again, I hate it. He accidentally knocks like a clock off the wall. And we see like the hoof ? Of the Sheep Witch drag the broken clock under the bed. This is a very great scare. Because we expect, we obviously expect Paco to get got in this moment. We only see the clock under the bed. So Paco kind of like is relieved for a second and turns on the light, and then the Sheep Witch is directly behind him. So I thought that was a very nice touch in my opinion. So then we cut back to Jay, who is in the cupboard, and we see Benji. We know his face got ripped off. So it's the pumpkin rabbit wearing Benji's face in a very Hannibal Lecter-esque move. And he's like, oh, it's safe to come out. Bah, 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 bah. And then he begins chasing Jay through the cabinets and like the baseboards, essentially. So Jay opens a door and winds up falling down the stairs with Dino, who we have not seen since Jay and Paco left to go get candy. And Dino still has the witch that he stole from, or the book that he stole from the sheep witch. And so they open the book to find it's a photo album from the Watermans that includes pictures of all of the missing children. And if that wasn't horrible enough, the last photo is the backs of all 4 of the kids from our story that they clearly took from behind when they were telling the story of the house, which is terrifying. So Dino and Jay walk through in the basement. There's this creepy, like, funhouse entryway, and proceed to encounter, like, horror after horror, ranging from creepy religious music to off-putting decorations. And the pair continue to find a couple more photos, and it's obvious that, like, the bodies are down here, and, like, these animatronics and these decorations and stuff. It's really, I'm not gonna get fully into it. Y'all can use your imaginations. Jay finds a key in a very unsavory place, and the two enter a room with a blood-soaked floor and animatronic bodies. And again, I'll let you use your imagination here. And then the pumpkin rabbit appears and says the Watermans were very bad people, which, duh. We have absolutely put that together. And then starts saying all of these really unsettling and upsetting things that make your skin crawl about, like, how the children are in trouble and playtime's over. And it's very creepy and just, again, makes your skin crawl. And then the pumpkin rabbit tries to hurt Dino, and he gets a couple swipes in. But Jay is fortunately able to save Dino by knocking off the pumpkin rabbit's mask to reveal his real face, which is similar to Bond's, except it's a lot more mechanical, and it honestly looks like, how do I say this? It looks like, think of a human face, like, without skin, where it's just, like, the muscle and stuff, but also mechanical. That's the best way I can describe it. Like, very exposed. Unlike Bond's face, which, you know, is, like, the blue rabbit face, and, like, even when he's crazy, it's, like, there's a robotic feature to this. There's, like, a very humanoid feature that we haven't really seen in the animatronics before. The pumpkin rabbit then asks Jay for the photo album back. She acts as though she's going to give it to him, but then she uses that same lighter she used to light the pumpkin at the beginning to set it on fire, and the pumpkin rabbit and the sheep witch began to scream as the animatronic bodies and the ghosts of these children begin to attack him. Then Jay and Dino are saved by Jay's dad, who appears to be an officer, and as Jay leaves, as they're driving away, we see 2 mannequins in the living room to represent the 2 friends of theirs that didn't make it out. We also see Jay and Dino in the driveway as amongst the foliage outside as they are driving away. And then we see that same pumpkin from the beginning rotting in the grass. And then we get all of the credits of the talented voice actors and animators and just all of the people who made this special set. To Norma Taniga's You're Dead, which many of you will know as the theme song for the TV show What We Do in the Shadows. And man, y'all really outdid yourself on this one. Like, it was genuinely terrifying. What an awesome little Halloween treat. Again, this came out a couple weeks ago. We're just behind because life. I also, to get a little bit of a refresher on the Pumpkin Rabbit lore, I looked at the Walton Files wiki, I don't know why I said wiki, the wiki, and there's not a lot known about the Pumpkin Rabbit, outside of the fact he's the antagonist of the minigames, which I thought, because I clocked that pumpkin patch as being similar to one of the minigames that Sophie played. He first appeared in Night of the Living Rabbit, where, like, it's explained that, like, basically he's some sort of manifestation from Felix Kranken's brain. But, like, kudos, as always, to the entire Walton Files team, / anyone who worked on this. Can't wait for the next installment. Y'all really outdid yourselves on this one. So next up, Local58 is back. They just uploaded 2 videos. The first one, which is the NSSA-3, parentheses, atypical, This one was unlisted a couple years ago and was finally made public. And then I believe Nightwalk is brand new, because I don't remember seeing anything about it. And the comments, there were no, like, comments from a couple years ago. So, I also got emotional because my mom loved Local 58. I know how that sounds, but, like, truly, she loved this series. So it was also, like, a fun little thing to watch. And you can also put a big old X or stamp, talked about unalived mom, on your B Movies bingo card for this week's video. Moving on. So the first video, like I said, is NSSA 3 Atypical. The description box for it reads, "Do not distribute, for internal use only." It's super staticky. There seems to be some talking in there. Can't make it out. Didn't see anything in the comments where anyone else could either. I think there are also some faces in it, because, like, we've seen, you know, the faces before in, like, the sleep video for Local 58. The only thing you can make out is the Local 58 logo in a couple parts. And again, the good news is everyone else seems to be on my level of confusion in the comments, so I don't feel bad. I think that this was more so, I think there's either going to be more to this that's going to come out later, or maybe this was just a, hey, we're back. So then we get to Nightwalk, which again, I believe is a brand new video. I don't remember hearing anything about this previously. So in the comments, there were no, like, older comments there. So I believe this is a brand new video. So we start with the Local 58 logo, and she's gotten a major glow up, which makes sense because, you know, we got that message about, like, converting to digital a couple years ago when the NSSA video, when that was found. So we get our traditional, like, broadcast lineup that we've seen for Local 58 before, which includes Nightwalk 1977 at 10, paid programming at 10:50, which paid programming in the world of Local 58 usually is not anything good, and then off air at 11:15. So the Local 58 logo glitches as we transition into Nightwalk, which is very much to me like in the style of, like, a 1970s documentary or, like, an early episode of Unsolved Mysteries is the vibe. And so we get told an urban legend about the woman in profile who, you guessed it, appears in Icker Falls, West Virginia, which is where our story, in Fair Verona, where we lay our scene. And so a woman claimed, like, they saw a woman looking up at the sky, but when they tried to interact with her, she basically retreated into the shadow and disappeared. And there have apparently been, like, dozens of sightings of this woman. And then there's a child's drawing, which will come back in a minute, that says, it's, like, the woman in profile and, like, a little kid behind her and the star and the moon and, like, a tree. And, you know, it's all, like, crudely drawn because it's a children's drawing. And it says, "The lady can see me even though I'm not up there." Because the one consistent thing that everyone says is she's looking up at the sky, which to me I think is a red herring, and it is a red herring, spoiler, because we know the moon is not right in Local 58, right? So you're like, oh, okay, like, she's looking up at the moon because that's a whole thing within this universe. And we'll get back to this drawing in a minute. So the video then glitches from our documentary to someone's personal footage from 1996. So we see the woman in profile looking up at the sky, and we're like, something looks off. Like, now that we're, like, seeing it, something looks off. And so when we get a closer look, the woman in profile is actually this horrific creature with two faces, to look like in profile. And the words, "A predator cannot differentiate between prey and accomplice," pop up. And then if you pause at the right time, which again, we know my frame by frame, you've got to stop doing the frame by frame stuff for me. Please, I am begging as someone who is so bad at it. We see the all too familiar safety in numbers phrase before cutting to the credits. So the child's drawing is clearly, she can see me, because the predator is not looking forward. That's the back of it. So it's looking at the people. And so that's why it can see the child, because no one ever got a good look at it because it was always in shadow, right? And so that's the red herring, is you think it's going to be something about the moon, because that's the whole Local 58 thing. But this thing is a full-on apex predator, and it's looking at you. It's just no one has been able to see it up close until this 1996 footage. So we are so back. It looks like the Local58 website may also be coming back. I didn't realize it was down until I was Googling, and I could only find it via the Wayback Machine. So, I'm pumped. Either way, Chris Strobe is, like, such an excellent creator. He really paved the way for modern analog horror. Can't wait to see. And I guess Local58 is back, baby. I'm stoked. I'm stoked. I'm ready. I am seated. Next up, Alex Bale has released the full Don't Feed the Muse series as one video. It's about an hour and a half long. If you missed it as it was airing, I guess is the best way to put it, if you, like, missed it as it was being released, now's your chance to basically watch it as a movie. And, like, I loved watching this as one installment, because it is a masterpiece. And, like, I thought it was genius when it was going on, but, like, to watch it all together, you can just really catch things that you didn't catch initially. I can't recommend it enough. I've heard it compared to kind of like Alex Bale's Inside, and I wholeheartedly agree. I think it's very much like this really intimate, creative retrospective, and it really, like, gets inside his head and his mental health, and it's very vulnerable, while also being, like, this great just horror series if you take, like, the analytical side out. And I can't recommend it enough, especially because if you haven't heard, a new piece on Inside will be coming next week. I noticed something because, of course I did, and I kind of cracked something wide open. So, especially with us doing our new piece on Inside, after I explicitly said in May we would be not doing any pieces on Inside for a while, I would watch Don't Feed the Muse. I'll link Alex's channel below, as always, the video below, and I'll link our piece on the Muse ARG, just in case you missed it, for that final little step. So finally, for this week's special features, let's talk about Anora. So I'm irritated. I love 90 to 95% of this movie. I think Mikey Madison is incredible in it. She does her own stunts. She spent months learning how to dance, etc. She's also 100% on my celebrity crush list now. However, this movie has the same problems that I have with Red Rocket, and that I think Sean Baker has a really bad tendency of adding problematic plot lines or dialogue into his movies for no reason. For example, in Red Rocket, we already knew Simon Rex's character was a scumbag. We didn't need for him to date a teenage girl. Okay? We didn't need it. And in Anora, we see the same gosh dang thing. Where there's this really irritating joke of characters using the F slur. Why do we need that? We don't need that. And then there's this really troubling conversation in the last 10 to 15 minutes of the movie that talks about grape, which again is in no way needed. And if those two things were taken out, this probably would have clinched a spot in my favorite movies of the year. But because those two things are so problematic, I can't put it in my list. In good conscience, I can't do it. And so, like, Sean, we don't need these things, bud. Do a Coco Chanel. Take two problematic things off before you leave the house, bud. We don't need it. And so, like, just take it out. For the love of all that's holy, take it out. And so because of that, like, I can't give Anora my blessing. Because we say the F slur so many times, and then we have that weird grape conversation. And I just, it's so irritating because it would have been, I think I have 3 spots left for my favorite movies of the year to do my top 10. It would have clinched number 8. But it's just because of that, and it's so irritating. So that's my take on Anora. I don't know what to say, because it's 90 to 95% of it is so good, but I just can't give it my full blessing because of that. So take with that what you will. So let's go ahead and move on to subtitles, which are just little pieces of pop culture news from around the internet. So let's go ahead and start with Yellow Jacket Season 3 is coming on Valentine's Day, so, like, happy Valentine's Day to us. There's a Gundam film adaptation coming from Legendary Pictures with Sweet Tooth showrunner Jim Mickle in the director's chair. R.I.P. to Quincy Jones. Just want to give condolences to all of his friends and loved ones. Famous musician, Rashida Jones's father. Just R.I.P. to a legend. A third installment in the Orphan series is officially on the way. Which, I love the Orphan movies, y'all. I loved that last Orphan movie. It was so good with Julia Stiles. Ooh. Neon has officially announced a 4-year consideration campaign for Longlegs for categories including Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, Best Actress, and every other category. So, really interested to see how that goes. Stranger Things 5 will have a year time jump. It's been confirmed. And has announced all of the episodes' titles, which include The Crawl, The Vanishing of, The Turnbow Trap, Sorcerer, Shack Jack, Escape from Kamazat's, The Bridge, and The Right Side Up. The cast of the new I Know What You Did Last Summer reboot movie has officially been rounded out, with cast announced including Lola Tung, Nicholas Alexander Chavez, Austin Nichols, and Gabriette. Macaulay Culkin will be joining the second season of Fallout, which y'all know I loved that show. Loved season 1. Super excited and love Macaulay Culkin. Love the Culkins. Y'all know that. Amazon is officially developing a Mass Effect series, which again, not as nervous about that as a lot of regular IPs, because apparently they just screw up 80s and 90s movie IPs when they make them into series. Cineverse, which is the studio / production house, responsible for the Terrifier series, will be remaking Silent Night, Deadly Night, which is wild and very interested to see how that turns out. Michael Fimonari is directing a new zombie movie called Epilogue, starring David Dastmalchian and Kate Siegel, with Mike Flanagan set to produce, with the plot details consisting of a year after a zombie apocalypse, apparently a couple's daughter, it gets infected, and they go to try to find a cure, which sounds interesting. Jason Reitman and Finn Wolfhard are set to remake Idle Hands, asking once again, is nothing sacred? I love that movie, and y'all know I'll always give everything a fair shake, so we'll see what happens, but I love Idle Hands, so fingers crossed. One hand's fingers crossed, I should say. Lady Gaga has officially joined the cast of Wednesday Season 2. Don't know which character she'll be playing or anything, but I think that's super rad. There is allegedly a Friday Night reboot in the works, which is I'm interested to see how that turns out as well. Super stoked about this one. Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett are back at it with what's being called a new gonzo action horror thriller called Onslaught, with cast including Eric Wareheim from Tim and Eric, Reginald Val Johnson, and a B-Movie's favorite, Dan Stevens, with the plot being kept under wraps, but color me jazzed. On board for all of that. You'll know I love Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett both. The McKinney Family Home Videos channel has officially announced that the last video, at least in this series, is on the way. While I'm sad to see this chapter end, I really can't wait to see what other content we get from the channel, / I'm sure that there will be more adjacent stories. And of course, as soon as I finished my script, went to bed last night, noticed that the video dropped while I was writing my script, so we will cover it next week, because of course it did. Miley Cyrus recently stated that Mandy is one of her favorite movies, if not her favorite movies of all time, and she wanted to make a musical where she plays Nick Cage's character, and all I can say is, Miley, make it happen, girl. We will be seated for that. Are you kidding me? Make it happen. Isabel May will officially play Sydney's daughter in Scream 7, which I still have massively conflicting feelings about after what they did to our girl Melissa Barrera. Don't feel great about that, to be honest. Netflix has canceled Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. Hella bummed about that, because I really, really liked that series. Popeye will officially get the horror treatment as he enters the public domain in the upcoming movie Popeye the Slayer Man. Once again, asking the Jurassic Park question of, just because we could, should we? I butchered that, but y'all know what I mean. Grave Conversations will be returning for a second season, much to my delight. And finally, Taco Bell is officially releasing chicken nuggets nationwide next year. So, I think that will do us for today. So all that's left to do is wrap us up. Feel free to follow me on Instagram at Lisa_Frankenstein_. Feel free to follow Elliot at reading.with.red. Be sure to follow us at bmovies channel, same as our YouTube. That's where we post announcements and everything. So if you're like, where was the B-Movies videos? We announced it over there that we were taking this break. Be sure to subscribe if you're not subscribed. It's free. Give us a like if you feel so inclined, and leave a comment if you're feeling frisky. And I guess on that note, all that's left to do is fade to black.